how did you kind of get in venture capital? What did you do before? Because I know that before you've been doing a lot of different like things, and I'm actually admire as well like your that you have 3 kids, and it's unbelievable
that I'm trying to keep out the room.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I started off my career in at Silicon Valley Bank on the venture debt team. Again, after I left UCL in 2007, I sort of had this in-between period where I worked at Thomson Reuters, just doing a job, nothing fancy. And I knew that there was something more I was searching for. I think we all have this sort of search for purpose. And, I got recruited by a recruiter called me and said they were looking for happy people at SVB. And I thought, okay, this is weird, but I'm going to go with it. I'd never heard of Silicon Valley Bank. Of course, now it's a household name. But at the time, I wasn't sure what to expect. They said it was this new American bank and they invest in tech companies. And I really did not know too much about it. But I went along. It seemed like a great opportunity, first of all, to watch a bank being built.
Mm-hmm.
And also to learn about tech. The first deal I worked on was Farfetch, which obviously now looking back, it's crazy to see that journey that they've been on. But I think getting into SVB, first of all, was a boost to my confidence because I didn't have that investment banking background. Yes, I did economics, but I wasn't, say, crazy with numbers and, the person, building models. That wasn't
Mm-hmm.
me. So I didn't know if I would fit in. But it gave me that exposure to all sorts of companies to build that sense of curiosity and an exposure to do all sorts of things. And I think that's when my real love for technology and startups started. And then I also got exposure to VCs. I'd never come across a VC in my previous career. And I started to understand what they did and obviously how getting venture money into a business can really turbocharge their trajectory. So I was at SVB for about 2.5 years, and then on my second mat leave, I created a startup called Mums in Tech, and that really started just because, again, curiosity. I wanted to see what it was like to build something from scratch. Given I was working with so many incredible founders, I thought, well, why don't I see what it's like to build something myself? And then very quickly realized it's a wonderful opportunity, when you've got a year off work to do something. And I thought I'd learn to code. And then, created Mums in Tech so that other women could come on that journey with me. And that was my real opportunity to meet a lot of founders and really spend time with them, understand that journey of fundraising. And it really opened my eyes as to how difficult a lot of people were finding it to raise investment, especially women. They were talking about how they struggled with getting their point across in the room. They just felt outnumbered. You go into a boardroom and there's just men sitting across this, on the other side of the table, and very often just not really understanding what you're talking about and how it will add any value to them. So not feeling like it's something worth backing.
Yeah.
You're nodding your head. I'm sure you must have heard similar stories, and you started I started to feel a bit frustrated and think, how can I change this? And that's how I decided, after doing Mums in Tech for 3 years, how can I break into this industry and how can I make a difference and empower people to feel confident to first of all apply for funding, because not many people feel it's for them, or they feel they'll get rejected. And just be that person sort of flying the flag and saying, you're welcome here, it's a safe space.
Okay, interesting. And then how do you know a lot of things about venture capital when you joined the company?
No, do you know what? I didn't. I knew a bit because obviously in that period where I decided I was going to, do my best and apply for a job in this space, I started to listen to loads of podcasts. Yeah. So I'm a massive fan of Harry Stebbings. And I listened to 20 Minute VC back to back and, read a lot of blogs and podcasts. But I knew a fair amount. I knew the VC landscape. But in terms of the ins and outs of investing, no. I mean, I tried to read venture deals. It didn't go very well.
No, but let's keep it for the next question, right? Just to be more consistent and just have like a kind of a structure. Yeah, I'll just give you like a quick overview about myself. I'm a partner at Pretiosum Ventures. It's a London-based venture capital fund, which is focused on seed and Series A companies in AI, fintech, and the future of work and life. We mostly invest in European companies and Israel. But then the next question will be, so it's kind of like overview about me. June, she's investor at Samos Partners, where she focus on, also seed investments, right?
Yeah, so we do seed to Series A.
Yes, good. Yes, maybe shall we move on and just like get more like an overview about how people can get into venture capital, and maybe just,
Yana, I'd love to hear about sort of your experience. Sort of how did you sort of first realize that you were interested in VC?
I think it was like a long time ago, because I've been working on large technological deployments since the beginning of my career, and then I just moved on and have been working on a project like as a consultant on a tech project as well with a large retail bank in the UK, and also been doing like a lot of business development and helping companies to grow, and especially companies from CIS countries, and then. I've been always like interested in venture capital because this is to me it's a dream job. I'm sure that for you as well. It's kind of a job when like really makes you more like smarter, and then you always constantly learning about new industries, new verticals within these industries, and you just like meeting great people that will change the world like one day, or like already changing the world. And then you can see like how companies are growing from being like a seed stage company, like since the very early beginning, and then up to, if you're lucky enough and you invest in like a unicorn, lucky and
isn't that the dream?
Yes. And then you also like help other people, right? I don't know about you, June, but I really like to help people around me. It's kind of a like personal trait. So I feel it's definitely aligned with my job, because I want, to make sure that I can help people around. And if it's just included in my job description, isn't it wonderful?
Exactly.
Yes. And then you also get to travel a lot, because you normally, going to the conferences, going and meeting companies all around the globe, and looking for like new partnerships for your companies, and also like meeting your investors in the fund. So it's just a lot of diverse things happening, and then every day is not the same as like a previous day. So
exactly.
Yes, maybe shall we cover now that kind of the typical day that you have, or like I have, as a seed stage investor?
Absolutely, yeah. And I think, just a caveat, what I love the most about this job is that no day is the same, and I'm sure you see that as well. It could start with a breakfast with a startup or an investor. And I think if anything as well, one thing I love is that you don't have to be chained to a desk. I'm definitely the type of person who loves to move around, and obviously lockdown is slightly different, but typically we'd be out and about. We'd be visiting accelerators. We could be at a demo day. Obviously there's an element of desk work where you have to do a bit of research. There's the reviewing of the decks, presentations that people send about their companies. So you spend a fair amount looking at those, just making sure that they're a good fit for the company. And I think obviously that can be quite subjective. So it's really important to take the time and really make sure that you're removing bias when you're looking at these presentations. A lot of the times you may not necessarily understand everything you see. And I think that's why it's important to get the founder in front of the room. So also you're spending time making appointments to either meet someone over Zoom, or inviting them into the office. So I do spend a lot of my time in Outlook, sort of setting up meetings. And then we have our internal discussions, usually on a daily basis, because we're a small firm. There's 3 of us. And we spend a lot of time talking about, whether it be some industry news that we may have heard from speaking to other investors or from speaking to
Yeah.
founders, just understanding trends. So we spend a lot of time reading as well, just making sure that we are on top of the day's news. So I spend a lot of time on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
Twitter is a really good source of information. On my commute into work, usually I'm reading a newsletter, and we'll share some details as to which newsletters we like. Just making sure that I'm aware of the landscape and I can feed that back into the partners because we're depending on each other to make sure that we're as up to date as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And you learn so much, during the conversations with founders about what else is going on in the market. And it's a constant education process. It doesn't stop. And again, with the day of a VC, there is no real end time. I think, because I love what I do so much, and I'm sure you feel the same,
Yes.
the learning is continuous. I am, on Twitter at the weekend just because I genuinely want to know what is going on. So
Yeah.
it's not a 9 to 5 job. It can be as long or as short as you want it. And I think
Yeah.
it obviously goes back to where do you like to spend your time? And I think it's
Yeah.
just one of those jobs that just becomes a part of you. I mean, what about you? How do you spend your day?
Oh, I think I try to balance, but I mean, not like work-life balance, but like work
Yeah,
and just like kind of like find the right proportion because we need to spend time with our portfolio companies, right? And every portfolio company have like different needs because one of the companies they might look for like IP lawyers, so I kind of connected them with like IP lawyers that we have in house, like a great like lawyer we have, and then another company they might look for like PR, right? And then maybe we just need to think about what the next move should be because sometimes especially the very early beginning, then you just need to make sure that you have a good strategy or like what kind of maybe looks through like a hiring plan whom you need to get on board, or maybe if you're talking about the next step like the next fundraising, right, that may be series A or series B, so then maybe we just need to kind of spend some time and just discuss who could potentially be a good partner like another venture capital fund and how we
exactly.
can actually facilitate the introduction. Or I spend a lot of time as well, like dealing with, because we mostly invest in B2B companies. So I spend a lot of time, also dealing with corporations and like kind of how we can collaborate and just get my portfolio companies out there. So this is kind of a job when I'm like dealing with companies. Another part of the job is, of course, looking at like new deals, and then it's just like there's kind of like wild west, right? Because there's no right or
It
wrong answer.
is.
I mean, you can find a company on Twitter, on Instagram, on Medium, or LinkedIn. You can have a company in common with another VC. You just like have a chat, and then you're like, oh, this is a great company. You should look at them. Or you can just find it like through Angel Network, right? Or like through that, like a lot of data tool that we have like access to. So there is no right or wrong answer. And then of course,
True.
you go through like all this accelerators and speak to people around. You also speak to service providers because it's a great source where you can just find interesting company. And
That's true.
yes, and also like I spend a lot of time actually on operations and admin, which is not my favorite at all. But like for some reason, I have to do it this year because we actually in a very exciting process right now at the fund. Yes, and
Yeah,
then
and
as a part of it, like as a part of our job, is like as well like a marketing, right? So you just either you talk about the fund or you talk about your portfolio company. So it's speaking on the panels, on different conferences, and yeah, just try in general, like you try to be helpful, so you're kind of connecting other people with potential opportunities.
exactly. And I think, you know what, that's my favorite part of the job where I can be helpful. And I guess, just to also highlight that, even when we're not able to invest in a company, there are still ways to be helpful. And what I try and do especially is make an introduction to another fund that might be more suitable or mentor. And I
Yeah.
think there's ways to keep a great relationship with a founder even when you can't necessarily offer them money.
Yes. Yeah, maybe shall we cover because yeah, this I think like our like job is indeed like wonderful, and you just get an opportunity to grow like in different directions. Shall we maybe cover some inspirational stories of people maybe you just also come across that got into venture capital, and then maybe from there we can elaborate and discuss the process of interview, what kind of questions you would expect, or like
Um,
as well, or like shall we cover the background, like the I think this is a very popular question, what kind of background people need to have to get into venture capital.
yeah, and I think especially on the background, I think what really I was so unclear of when I first started the search into VC was, whether I would be a fit, because I assumed that you needed to have sort of investment banking or a consultancy background. And I think the more I speak to VCs, I'm really excited to see that actually so many backgrounds are,
Yeah.
so many people from different backgrounds are coming into VC. I know VCs who've had a founder background, and VCs who have been medical doctors, who've been in marketing, who've been, writers, who've been teachers. I think what I now appreciate is that diversity of thought is so important,
Mm-hmm.
and anything that sort of gives you an edge is your superpower. And I think that's the last thing they want, is to have people with exactly the same views. So what I'd say is it really doesn't matter what background you have. There are so many inspiring people. I mean, look at Serena Williams. She's got a fund. She's a tennis player. And there's a supermodel, Nata Supernova. I love that. She's a supermodel, but she's a VC. And I think don't be put off by the fact that you don't necessarily have a stereotypical background. I think a lot of the skills can be learned. What I say is
yeah. I'm maybe yeah. I think, I mean, I've seen, because I've been interviewing a lot of people for like, a venture capital position, at our fund, for example. And then I kind of came across the single mistake that a lot of people do. So they assume that once they get a job in venture capital, they will learn about the job. They will learn about what is this venture capital, etc. But there is no way. So that like people who actually, normally like venture capital funds are quite small. It's normally from like, let's say two, 3 people up to, I mean, now we have like a mega funds, of course, but in general speaking, it's up to maybe 12, 15 people, right?
Yeah.
So that's, I feel you need to act as you already inside the industry. So meaning that you already need to subscribe to all these newsletters, to Twitter, then maybe have a page on Medium where you can share your thoughts. And then kind of like going to the conferences and network with people, maybe some meetups to start, because the main problem, for example, I'll just like share some kind of questions, answers that I've received like during the interview process, right?
Yeah.
Is, for example, I asked the question, what do you think about, can you just name a couple of early stage companies that I might potentially look at right now in the UK, in the fintech sector? And the person who is like, the guy was coming from the finance background. He was like in IB before, investment banking. So he said, yes, I know. I said, okay, name the company. And he said, yes, it's Revolut. And I'm sorry, Revolut, again, it's not like early stage at all. So, and it's a very common mistake. Or for example, people feel like, okay, you just need to hire me. I'm awesome. But, there should be something why I need to hire you. Like, what kind of network do you have? Or what kind of knowledge do you have? How you actually can help me right now? So this is the main point. So then you have to already have this knowledge, and just never assume that people will teach you on a job, because when the team is small, no one is there to like teach you what to do. You have to like, there's like so many things available on the internet. So you can just, knowledge is free. So you just can Google. Yes.
Exactly. And I think it goes back down to hustle, isn't it? You sort of have to prove that you're resourceful. And I think there is no prescriptive job description for VC.
That's true. I have 3 inspiring stories, and I would love to share. Maybe June, you also can come up with something great, then we can share. So the first story, so when we were hiring people, so it was like one person who came to the interview and he was prepared. And by prepared, I mean he did like he went extra mile and he did his job. What I mean by that, he came with a presentation with like my logo of the fund and 3 investment opportunities. He wants me to look at them. So, you know,
Wow.
he said like, this is the company. I mean, I didn't ask for any homework, right? It just was like initial interview for like, let's say 30 minutes.
Yeah.
But he came prepared, and really like he touched me because, you know, like touched my heart, because I feel it's very important. If you really want to do something, you just need to go extra mile, prepare something, you know, just stand
Absolutely.
out of the crowd. So then, you know, we didn't hire him because we were looking for like some specific qualities. But then I said, listen, let's stay in touch. And I just, and I started to forward him like all the opportunities I came across. And finally he got a job in Amsterdam. And now, you know,
Oh,
we are in touch. And then, yes, when he's in London, you know, we actually communicate, and, you know, he's a great guy. And like, because he was prepared. The second story was a bit interesting. So the guy, he just reached out to me on Instagram, and said, Yana, I want to get into venture capital. And here's my Medium blog.
yeah.
Here I'm posting about the company. So he started to just, you know, he pick up like random companies. He thought it might be interesting to kind of share with venture capitalists. And
Yeah.
he just like started to write like investment pages. So he's like, okay, this is a company X. I like this because of ABC. Team, market, like opportunity, kind of maybe some financials
Is,
if there's any, some previous funding. So like really like a structured investment memo. And it's really amazing. He just, you know, reached out to like on Instagram, but you
I love
know,
it.
he started to build his profile on Medium, because Medium is a public platform. Everyone is reading Medium, and you know, like people can see what kind of thought process like did he do before. Medium, it's Medium. I will type it so because
Yeah.
someone Medium, that's normally where people post like do. We see this like mostly for like short tweets, but Medium it's for kind of long if you want to put out the
Exactly.
essay. And the third story, it just actually happened today, June. Could you imagine? So that's, I just received an email from a person. He just sent me his research on what's happening in venture capital industry in Q1 with all the numbers, the like the funding rounds, etc. And you know, when I click on his LinkedIn profile, it was written, "I'm looking for opportunities, you know, in venture capital." So
Yeah.
it's so evident sometimes, but it's kind of hard to get and just kind of like push yourself out there and start like, you know, start building your profile or like online presence. Do you have any inspiring
Absolutely.
stories?
I mean, I'm just, you know, I'll go back to even to my story just to say how you really have to have the courage to ask people to open doors for you. Because I remember, you know, I didn't know anyone at Samos, but I asked around. You know, there's this amazing group called Diversity VC, and I made sure I got an introduction, a warm intro into the founder, who's Czech Warner, an absolutely amazing lady. But I think it's so important to go above and beyond, because I didn't know what sort of questions to expect at the interview. So I asked Czech, and she talked me through the process. She gave me advice on sort of how to prepare. Um, and also just to help me think about what can I bring to the table. Same as, you know, you're trying to figure that out when you're hiring. I was thinking, okay, what can I add? I knew that I had a really strong network, which I'd
Mm-hmm.
built over the years, and just even having someone highlight this for you, and you
Yeah.
know, talking through that process with someone, find a mentor, find other people that work in the investment space that'd be happy to have a coffee with you, have a virtual Zoom, and just sort of go over how they prepared, books they read, just, you know, give you tips, you know. And I think it's so important that we sort of put that pride aside and feel free to ask. It's not impossible. Another sort of inspiring person that I really admire is obviously Harry Stebbings, founder of 20 Minute
Mm-hmm.
VC, who literally hustled his way into the world of venture capital. And I think that is, you know, true power of, you know, these mediums that are available. You know, he created a podcast interviewing VCs, obviously in the hope that he would become one eventually, and it worked because
Mm-hmm.
obviously you build that network, you build incredible content. Another inspiring person is obviously Sarah Nokel from Dem Street, who started off with an incredible blog, really focused, so much great content, like she knows her stuff, and really brought the community together, and that's a
Mm-hmm.
superpower. And today, like, she's attracting some of the best firms. You know, she went on to work at Dawn Capital, and you know, she's doing some incredible stuff. But
Yeah, I think she
anyone
moved
can do
to
that if you're
Northern, right?
determined. You just have to have that grit.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. She moved to Northern, I think.
Yeah, she's now at, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So,
And
just,
do you have any, I mean, if you're talking about interviews and then, you mentioning, how do you, for example, like, what, maybe you can share like some tips on the interview, like what kind of questions people might expect on the interview?
yeah, similar to the question you asked as well, I was asked sort of what trends I was interested in the world of startup. And I think obviously it was really helpful for me to be able to talk about the networks I'd built,
Yeah.
just and the kind of things that I enjoyed reading. So we sort of expanded on that. So at the time I was really obsessed with healthcare. So I talked about sort of the companies I was interested in at the time, and we just had a nice conversation. And I think more than anything as well, you're also interviewing them. So I was trying to understand their thought process in how they chose to make the investments in the companies they did. I also went behind the scenes and spoke to one of their portfolio companies
Mm-hmm.
just to make sure that we were on the same page, because I was very particular that if I'm going to go into, especially a small company, you really want to make sure that your values add up. And, what I loved the most was that particular founder had pitched while she was 7 months pregnant or 8 months pregnant, and they didn't bat an eyelid. I'm sure, you would also have heard the stories of female founders sort of being discriminated against sometimes in pitches. So it was really lovely to hear that they were good people. And I think you ultimately want to work with good people, smart
That's
people as
true.
well, because they made great bets. So I was really
Yeah.
trying to understand their mindset, and I guess they wanted to see what I bring to the table, and I was conscious that I wasn't going to bring, the very, very, the modeler, behind the scenes, that wasn't my strong point. But I
Mm-hmm.
think what they gathered from all their questioning was the people I knew and the network was going to add value, and I guess my curiosity and interest in the spaces that they had invested in, and obviously was going to bring something different in that, you know, we will all have slightly different viewpoints on things, which I think is nice.
Yes, yes, definitely. And then like it's kind of like I would love to add on that. You asked about like what kind of investments they have done before, etc., as an interview question. But if a person is junior, right? If it's like a young person who just wants to go into venture capital, what I would recommend is just to do like virtual portfolio. As you know, when you're playing around with stocks, you have like this virtual portfolio where you can just train yourself before you actually do like a place a original order. But when, the same with venture capital, all the resources available. So I would recommend just, do like a simple, let's say, Google spreadsheet with,
Yeah.
and then you put kind of some of the investments that you think would be great, in the future. What about you? What you don't like about your job?
Oh, I tell you, the hardest bit for me is saying no,
Yeah.
and it goes back to wanting to be able to help everyone, which we can't do. So I dread saying no. If I had an unlimited pile of money, I would invest in more companies. But yeah, I think that's the hardest bit, and it can be quite, you get emotionally invested in a lot of the founders, and you want to help. So that for me is
Yeah.
the tough bit.
What I started to do is if I have to say no, and then I know, I mean, fundraising is really hard right now. So I try to be as well. Anyway, I try to be helpful. So I
Yeah,
just say, yeah, we don't invest because of A, B, C. I just also try to provide like a feedback to the founder, and
exactly.
kind of like attach like a list of a database of other venture capital funds,
Yeah.
which is like available right now. This COVID-19 database of all the investors.
It's
So
brilliant.
yeah, I think it's kind of helpful because yeah, you say no, but you just still want to go back, give back to the community and to the founder,
Exactly.
because it's extremely difficult to run something, especially on the early stage when you're responsible for, for literally everything.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
yeah. Shall we move to the Q&A?
Yeah, let's see what questions have come through.
Okay. Okay, 1 second. Um, what are the skills and experience you need to get into venture capital? We more or less covered, but do you want to answer this question, June?
Um, for me, I think, um, you definitely need a huge amount of curiosity. You have to be able to absorb information quickly. So you need to, I think you definitely need to have networking skills. I think there's no way around that one, because it's
Yeah.
really about, connecting the dots. We spend a lot of time making introductions. I think it's really critical that you have an interest in growing your network.
Mm-hmm.
I would say, yeah, I mean, it's really about, just good listening skills, curiosity, analytical skills, and networking, I think, are really
Yeah.
key. I mean, what about
I
you?
I agree. I totally agree.
A bit of financial skills too.
I would also like say even like marketing skills. It could be very
Yeah,
useful as
building your
well.
brand.
Like it's building about your brand, but also help your companies, right? Especially like in the seed stage and pre-seed, it's extremely important. Yeah, I mean, we just you kind of like need to find your niche. You can help companies with like financials, right? With some metrics, and just maybe if you're like very analytical, you just come and say, listen, guys, this is like OKRs that you need to reach, and how like we can just like work towards them together. You can help with marketing, right? You just like there is no like yes or no, like right or wrong
Yeah,
answer in this
exactly. I
question.
mean, find your superpower, I'd say,
Yes.
and use it to help.
Okay. So I think we can maybe wrap it up. And just to say that we will distribute the list with all useful information, such as what podcast to listen to, what books and newsletters to read. Maybe we will share as well some useful links where you can just find jobs in venture capital. And because of just there are a few resources they just post in like jobs in venture capital. What else can we include in this document, June?
I think we'll definitely include some great people to follow, just as a
Yeah.
starting point for anyone who's looking
Us?
to
Yes.
I'd say just, don't be shy, reach out to either of us on
Mm-hmm.
Instagram or on Twitter, and we'd be more than happy to help. Just I think that's the key. You ask someone to open the door, and it will be open. And I think that, have that courage, because the reality, I genuinely believe that anyone can get into VC if you have that hustle, and just go for it. Start now. Now's the perfect time to explore a new career. At least explore it. See if you even want to get into it. But I think you'll only know the more conversations you have and the more content you consume.